was a really little kid, my dad played this song called Gangster's Paradise, and I really liked that song, and I don't know, that just really inspired me. I was like, wow, it's a really cool song. I like the hook.
Not a lot.
You used to listen to the Root CD.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with where I'm from. That didn't happen until California, and here hip hop came around for me, probably high school, long ago, in the 80s, before it was all of it is now, a long time ago. So.
My first conscious memory of hip hop was when I was 8 years old, when Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight was the #1 song in the country, and I loved it. I knew every word, every phrase.
Here's hip hop. I believe it was Lauryn Hill. I believe it was in high school. I love Lauryn Hill, the Fugees. Yeah.
Music scene, I like the Bay Area. Tupac's like the biggest gangster rapper in the world, and he was from New York, but he actually got big from when he was at Tampa. He moved to Marin City, and he got really big out of the Bay Area, which is really weird because like the biggest gangster rapper like in the world is like got big out of Marin County.
We would, back then, you'd get a gig and it would be like 5 45-minute sets from like 8 to 1 in the morning. Like you'd play like teenage like dance clubs or like teenage nightclubs. So we needed like we needed to know like 100 songs, and so we started learning hip hop songs because we could learn them quickly. They were mostly just drum breaks, and I would do like scratchy stuff on my keyboard, and then other people would rap. And those songs, like when we did Run DMC songs, people went nuts. And I didn't have the language yet for what was going on there, but there was something very interesting about a bunch of suburban white Maryland kids playing Brooklyn hip hop as a rock band to a bunch of white kids listening, and it wasn't until the Beastie Boys broke. I mean, we performed those songs 2 or 3 years before License to Ill came out, but when that happened, that kind of thing I felt happening, like there's something here where there's a white community that wants to access something different. It was when License to Ill came out that I kind of realized that there had been some kind of underground transfer that blew up with that record. So
I don't know. It was a white suburb, rich town.
But it's very, but it was close to LA.
Hollywood is a big influence down there.
No, but it was close to like Compton and stuff, and so like hip hop culture really influenced the youth. So even though it was a white suburban area, like everybody
the Run
knew all the words to all the songs and stuff.
No, anyway, the reason I like hip hop is because it moves you. If at a club, it's the thing that, and all the other genres I just mentioned, you can't really dance to.
Yeah.
So if you want to dance, that's good. House and hip hop. Yeah.
I just love everything about hip hop. I like really technical hip hop that's like very like gruesome in its lyrics. I like Tupac. I like Atmosphere a lot. Like that, I hated hip hop for a long time, a lot. Like I was just like, this sucks. You know what I mean? Like I liked like The Doors, Nirvana, Sublime, stuff like that. And basically there's no talent, but there's always an artist who's right in between that will kind of branch it, whether it's like Eminem or like, whatever. Like there's always, they'll just be like, it sucks, it takes no talent, hip hop sucks, like play some stuff like Mosh Pit, like Metalhead, stuff like that,
I know some folks I have some musician friends who are fiercely anti-rap, who are like rap's short for crap, and they can't play, they can't sing, and I always think there's a racial component to that. I think that the early criticisms against hip-hop were racialized, like these are just people who somehow shouldn't be allowed to be making records, and I think that's absurd. Not really that it's, I don't think rap's bad, I don't think rap isn't music or any of that kind of ridiculousness, but when things got skeletal, I got less interested orally. My ears weren't turned on the way they were by early hip-hop. And then when I kind of lost the thread of the conversation it was having with itself, when I came back in, I found so much of it to be hard for me to listen to as background music, or hard for me to listen to in general. Like,
why do people listen to it?
Well, it's still interesting. It still has a good beat, I guess. I think it comes down to that. They'll sing along to anything if it's got a snappy beat and they can dance to it or get attention from it or something.
the absence of melody, like once they went after people for sampling, right? Once you couldn't make a De La Soul record where there's 700 samples without paying for them, and once it got really skeletal and it became mostly just drum breaks and rapping, being an instrumental musician myself, I miss the grooves, I miss the beats, I miss the melodies, and then as it got darker, as the subject matter went into my opinion, in some cases, a very performative darkness, performative look into the dark side of the soul, without melody, without something for me to draw on to accept the bleakness of it, I lost track of it.
And it's not very melodic and so on. So I was sort of raised with more melody and some storyline. There's no storyline, it's just okay.
I don't know if there's a particular time. It just seems to be evolving and becoming progressively more vulgar, which is, it has a time and a place, but it's just interesting. Like the gym that I go to, they play hip hop sometimes during the class, and they're like, you listen to the lyrics, you don't really notice it, and then you're like, oh, they're just having sex and doing drugs in the back, and it's like, oh, well, okay, it's got a nice tune, and you don't even notice, you know, what the words are saying in your head, and you're just listening to the rhythm of the, you know, the music and the sounds of it, and then it just kind of, it seems like it just sinks into you, and then you realize when you stop and you listen, you're like, oh, okay, did I just say that? And you're singing along to it, and you're like, not exactly what I would choose, but
Yeah.
When I was a kid, the lyrics were the last thing you listened to. You know, you listen to the beat, you listen to the music, and then maybe on the 6th or 7th take, you tried to figure out what the singer was saying. And there seems to have been a flip, like even pop music is mixed, so the vocal is so up front that you can't miss a word. You know, like Shake It Off, like the mix is like the band's here, and Taylor Swift's vocal is so out front, you can memorize the lyrics to that song all the way through the second time you hear it. And that's a hip-hop influence on pop music. Like, your generation seems much more interested in the lyrics, even when they're the most inane, sexist, stupid drivel ever. You all know all the words. I go to one of those dances, and, you know, from everyone's like up and down and knows every ridiculous thing that's about to be said, you know. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer for why hip hop is so wildly more popular than other art forms. Those are my two theories, but I don't have any proof for them.
I think it sends a negative message to women in general and young girls. It's got a lot of body image issues, a lot of self-worth, and what the guys are thinking about you and what you should be doing to get the guys. And on the other hand, there are a lot more, I think, female hip-hop artists that are probably trying to put out some better messages, at least to make them equivalent instead of just subordinate to the images that you get in the men when they're singing the songs. But it definitely, I think, probably as a teenager, can certainly set that into your mind that this is what I'm supposed to be, and it's not necessarily up here, but down here below the guys. It's just kind of sad.
Their relation to hip hop. I think it's mixed. You know, there are some sexist pigs out there that really enjoy that kind of like slap that ass, like I want your booty, I want you to be a skinny little thing with booty.
Right? Like there's a lot of demeaning words about women. And I didn't like that. There were less female artists. What's that group? Salt and Pepper?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there were very few and far in between.
If I could change anything about it, it would be the way people get big. A lot of people look up to artists who do, okay, like say for example like Tupac, he died really young, right? He got shot and killed. Mac Dre too. Also like, say even like going outside of hip hop, like Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, or like Sublime, Bradley Noel, they all die from like drugs and all that stuff. I would like someone to put out, and that's what I'm doing with my life, all the emotion of those artists without self-destructing, because even though they died and like people will be like, that's a bad influence and they inspired kids to want to do drugs and stuff like that, I got caught in that cycle. Seriously, it was like very relevant to me to want to be that, so like I became addicted to drugs at a point in my life, I feel, because of the lifestyle that I looked up to. I would say for people to be more just natural and do what they do and inspire other people, to like really give it all and be like really talented without having to like self-destruct. Just find a way to do that. If there's a will, there's a way. That would be what I would say. Like maybe without violence and drugs and like shootings and stuff like that. If that's like possible, that would be pretty cool to me. You know?
Thank you so much. Influence.
Oh my God, yeah. Everyone wants to be a rapper. It seems like too. Like I think the weird part is I think a lot of my friends will be successful, including myself, but I think that it just inspired people to go out and kind of like do it, you know what I mean, and like do music, and hip hop's a quick way to just express yourself.
As to the other thing, I think it's incredibly immediate, you know. I think there's something wonderfully direct about hip hop, right? Like you don't need to get together and practice for 6 months to say something. You make a beat, you make your lyrics, you say it, it's done. You can make a rap track in an afternoon in a way that's more difficult to do with other forms of art.
You know what I mean? Like these are hard times. People just want to feel or do something, whether it's positive or negative. Hip hop just kind of does that very quickly. It's very instant music. That's why I think it'll be relevant in the future. If that makes sense.
The music teacher in me thinks we have gutted our public schools. Nobody takes music lessons anymore. Nobody knows how to play a musical instrument. But everybody can use Pro Tool. Everybody can use a computer, and they can use, some kind of rudimentary music software. So you can create beats quickly. Like you can make a beat in 30 seconds if you buy that. You buy a Korg app and you buy a drum machine app and you do a couple things. Boom, you're making music. And if you don't know anything about tonal harmony or melody, you've never had to practice singing, you never had to make. I think hip hop in some ways is such an immediate connection to people without any musical training. Now I don't know if that's true or not, but there's a part of me that thinks hip hop would be more musical if kids had more music training. That people who are there'd be more kind of full band, like Jay-Z and Beyonce full band hip hop shows rather than just the 2 turntables and a microphone kind of approach.
Mm-hmm. It just inspires you. It's like, whoa, I could do that. And that's like a powerful feeling, when you're having a hard day, like when you feel like, they got really big, like, oh, I could do that. I don't know, just hip hop kind of like does that. So a lot of kids, that don't know how to play an instrument or whatever can just like kind of like pretend they can rap or whatever, so it got relevant in that way too. Everyone wants to be a rapper. Hip hop is too. Hip hop is a lot of like, we grew up in a bad area and this is all we know how to get out of what we're doing. This is like the best we can do. So if that word, life is hard, hip hop is just another form of music that's very poetic. It inspires people to be poets. That makes their life better. They're more in tune with themselves. It's very important.
Well, right now it's pretty empowering, like with Beyonce and stuff. I like the message, and it's fun, and you can dance to it.
Awesome.
I mean, growing up in Maryland in the 1980s was different than growing up in Brooklyn. Now it's a little less different, right? Mm-hmm. We're all on the same internet. We're all on the same Facebook. We're all, listening to the same satellite radio stations. We've all got Spotify. Culture is instant and immediate and everywhere all at once, and that wasn't the case,
I think it's widely accessible right now already. I mean, if you go to other countries, for instance, like Cambodia even, like the youth are totally listening to it. And like I saw a special on how the Aborigines in Australia are totally like using hip hop as a way to reach their youth and empower people. So I don't think it can be any more popular than it is.
Oh, it's changing.
Yeah, and then you have it in different languages, like French and Malaysian, Indian, German.
Swahili.
Yeah. When we were in Africa, we heard it in Swahili.
I mean, any art community will over-repeat itself and then catch itself and make a move towards reinvention. I think Jay-Z's use of a big live band on his last tour was a really interesting move, and
Well, they could some of the songs are fine. It's not all of the songs. They can just simply choose to send a different image in their lyrics, but I think that's what sells. It goes along with the media and every other, outlet of entertainment. It all just seems to be progressing to there, and I think it'll go in a cycle, and eventually people will get sick of it or get bored with it, and it'll tone itself down, and I think it'll just be a wave of change.
we'll see where it goes. I mean, rock music has the same problem, right? Like Elvis and Chuck Berry and a bunch of guys start the rules, and then there's kind of and it fades off, and the Beatles and Motown do this thing, and then everybody sounds like them for a while, and then you have the rise of funk and soul, and then progressive rock, and then punk makes it all raw again, and then the introduction of synthesizers, and you have all this kind of new wave and pop music in the 80s. There's a point where there's a new thing, and then everybody repeats it, and then it comes like, oh, it's dead, it's dying. Usually somebody comes along to reinvent. I don't know where we are in that cycle. I'm not well versed enough to know, are we in a moment of reinvention or repetition or somewhere in the middle? Or...
General. Well, when it first started, it was pretty radical, like Run DMC and stuff. It had a really strong, powerful message. And then over the years, it just got kind of nasty. And then I think it's turning back around now.
This is the point. I'm 45. At this point, you should start to listen to stuff that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, that's kind of how it goes. If the music I'm listening to is the music you're listening to, something's not quite right. Like, you should be listening to stuff that makes me uncomfortable. That's how art's supposed to work, right? Like, or that I don't get. Like, I'm supposed to see your mixtape and think like, "Why? I don't get it." Because if your mixtape is my mixtape, then there hasn't been much progress, I mean. All hip hop has to do is catch my ear, really. I mean, it's not like I'm not open to loving something. But when people play me stuff, right? They're like, you gotta hear this. Too often, it's like the beat starts and somebody goes, yeah, hell yeah, and then they'll add like a little kind of Dr. Dre-ish, woo, and then somebody starts rapping about how wonderful they are. I mean, what catches my ear is when those rules aren't followed and somebody's doing something a little bit different,
Thank you.
And I also think, I don't want to say this. I like things that take themselves seriously. But one of the great things about popular music is you can be serious and have a lightness of being at the same time, right? Like, great pop music's about right now. And it doesn't have to think like, how will this sound in 50 years? It's not the point. It's supposed to be great for right now. And if it's a great song, it'll last. And if it isn't, it was great for right now. And I feel like artists forget that. Like, they're like, okay, I'm making a statement, or like, this has to last, or this has to be something that will transcend the test of time. Like, a 3.5-minute pop song, it's not supposed to transcend the test of time. It's supposed to make you feel alive the moment it comes on the radio. So the hip-hop song that does that for me, I'm all ears,
Strictly hip-hop, boy, I ain't singing this, bringing this to the entire nation. Black, white, red, brown, feel the vibration.
Like hip-hop then?
Why people like hip hop? One is because if you take enough MDMA,
Vibration.
Hip-hop's a bunch of fucking lies.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Let's see.
No, hip-hop is great. It's freestyle. That's what it really is. It's freestyle.
What do you mean
Straight
it's
up
freestyle?
Saying your own piece before you go to the store and buy whatever you want to buy.
Yeah, but do they write?
Hip-hop, it has been commercialized, of course. Why? Because they all say it. We get money.
Homie, you're drunk.
No, there's no they. Because why? I'm white and I ain't got no fucking money.
Thank you, sir.
I told you he was drunk.